So let's talk Zimbabwe. Small country, Southern Africa, crazy inflated money. Largest denomination of $100 trillion can't even buy your bread. So let's talk about the man that allowed this crazy meme currency to happen. Robert Gabriel Mugabe was born on 21st of February 1924 in a little country called Southern Rhodesia, which is what we know as Zimbabwe today. His father was a carpenter while his mother taught Christianity, and more specifically, catechism, to the village children. Around the time of his 6th birthday, Mugabe's father got into an argument with one of the village leaders and subsequently got his entire family of 2 parents and 6 children kicked out of the village. Anyway, to cut a long story short, his dad abandoned his family and then his 2 older siblings died. After that, he attended a teacher training course in an effort to be able to start providing an income for his remaining family. So by the time Mugabe was 20, he was pretty much already financially responsible for his 3 younger siblings. It was also around this time that Mugabe's father came back and pretty much immediately died. This left Mugabe financially responsible for the 3 kids his father had had since abandoning his family, on top of the 3 siblings he was already supporting. About a year on from this, he figured that his younger brother Donato was now old enough to support for the family instead, so he left to go teach elsewhere. As a result of his teaching renown, he was invited to study at the University of Fort Hare in South Africa. It was here that he met a group of Jewish South African communists which told him all about Karl Marx's philosophies of communism. But more on that later. While Mugabe was absent from the country, an anti-British colonialist patriotic movement had established itself through the form of a political party known as the National Democratic Party. So after gaining several degrees from the University of Fort Hare, he decided to go back to Zimbabwe and join this movement. He quickly rose to being a prominent figure in the movement and formed a plan. A demonstration of 7,000 people, including Mugabe and other leaders of the National Democratic Party, planned to march from the outskirts of Zimbabwe's capital Harare all the way to the president's office. They were however stopped a measly third of the way through their march by riot police outside of a place called Sturdard Hall. By midday the next day, the crowd outside Sturdard Hall had grown in size to over 40,000 people, and a platform had been established for speakers. Mugabe was among those invited to speak to the crowd because he was well educated and had like 3 to 4 degrees. So about a year later, the British government allowed for a conference with the NDP. The meeting focused on trying to reduce the number of white people in the parliament, as they were occupying 100% of the seats, despite being an ethnic minority. After many long and hard days of negotiation, the NDP agreed to a proposal that would allow 15 of the 65 seats in Parliament to be represented by Rhodesian natives. Understandably, many people in the NDP were pretty angry about this, Mugabe included. It was definitely not the result they were hoping for, and many blamed it on the leader, Joshua Nkomo's piss-weak resolve. This shitty agreement resulted in the entire anti-colonial movement falling apart, culminating in the NDP being banned just a month after the negotiations. But thanks to a legal loophole, the members reformed just a couple of days later as the Zimbabwe African People's Union, or ZAPU. This newly formed ZAPU was acting far more aggressive than its predecessor ever had, literally advising citizens of Rhodesia to just straight up start attacking and killing any white people they saw in the streets. This crazy amount of violence being led by Mugabe and ZAPU completely dismantled Nkomo's plans to focus on international diplomacy. Prospects of a peaceful revolution were completely abandoned at this point. The British government was never going to grant them independence now. Unsurprisingly, ZAPU was swiftly banned by the ruling government, and at this point Mugabe pretty much just said, "Hey guys, look, alright, listen, hear me out. I've got an idea. Let's do armed rebellion." And as a result, he and his wife had to flee the country to avoid imprisonment basically immediately. While he and his wife were running around avoiding going to jail and stuff, 2 new anti-colonial groups were formed. The first one basically just being a reformation of ZAPU, and the second being called the Zimbabwe African National Union, or ZANU. So you have ZAPU and ZANU. These 2 groups, which, may I remind you, more or less want the same thing in the long run, basically broke out into a violent gang warfare. I'm talking Molotovs and rigged guns and grenades and fucking stabbings between 2 groups that were both opposed to the same government. Like, Jesus Christ, like... So if you were standing in front of a man that had a gun to your head, and there was another person next to you, and the first person had a second gun to their head, would you turn and stab the person that's also having a gun held to their head? No, you wouldn't do that. Fucking hell, Zimbabwe. Get your shit together. Yeah, so Mugabe, upon seeing this violent gang warfare, was like, "Oh yeah, it's a pretty good time to come back, yeah. And then, upon coming back to lead ZANU, he was basically arrested on arrival and sentenced to 11 years in prison. Alright, that's the end of part 1. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe!